Well, Dave, thanks so much for joining me. It's really great to see you again.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. And I heard you speaking about climate change earlier in the year at a conference, which seems a lifetime ago now. Everything's changed.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
But I've been really reflecting on the issue, and I was really grateful for what you shared. You've been passionate, however, about climate change, about obviously you're a keen scientist, and about environment. You've been passionate about this for years, though, Dave.
Yeah.
Why are you so passionate about it?
It started professionally when I was working at the Met Office, and my role at the Met Office was to develop what we call climate models. So these are computer programs, computer models of the entire world, its atmosphere, its oceans, and we use those to try and predict how the climate is going to change over the next 100 years or so. So I was involved in building those for about over 10 years, specializing in clouds. So through that period, that was the time through the 90s when internationally climate change was coming on the agenda through what's called the IPCC, the UN climate conferences and reports, and I knew people involved in doing those reports. And you sit in some of these seminars, to be honest, and it can be scary what these computer models are telling you. I mean, I went for a walk with a friend of mine who was very involved in the United Nations progress after one seminar, and I said to him, that graph of how temperature is going to increase over the next 100 years due to human pollution and humans adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere scares me. And he just looked at me and said, yeah, that scares me too, because it's going to reshape the world that we know. It's already starting to do that. And already the world's 1 degree warmer than it was 200 years ago. And we see the impacts upon that around the world. I was over actually in New Zealand in February, and they were telling me about the clouds of smoke that drifted over from those massive fires in Australia, which were linked to an extreme heat event. And as we're speaking now, I've been reading this morning, Siberia, northern Russia, inside the Arctic Circle, they've had temperatures of 38 degrees this summer, and massive forest fires there, releasing large amounts of carbon, pumping that into the atmosphere. We're seeing increasingly more and more of these things happening and affecting not only human society, but just the nature itself, animals, plants, ecosystems are all starting to change. So when I started to train for ministry about 20 years ago, I carried this scientific interest with me, and it kind of merged with my theological interest and faith interest. And it seemed to me that this was something that the church needed to take notice of, just as much as some of the big issues that we also take notice of. It's about caring for something God said is good. And it's a justice issue, justice for the environment, for nature, but also for people, because there are many people in our world who are going to be impacted by this, and yet they've played very little part in it. Most of the responsibility for these gases comes down to us in the developed world. People that I visited in Peru, people that I read about in Africa have contributed very little to this, and yet I see them being impacted year in, year out by the changes that are occurring already.
You kind of answered my second question, which was why should we be passionate about this? I mean, I think I get it from what you're saying. I mean, it's our world, and it's impacting life all around us, and it's a justice issue, and there's so much more.
Yeah.
Did you before we start press record, you talked about an initiative. Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, there's always been a scattered interest amongst Baptist churches about the environment and climate change, and it's kind of bubbled along. BMS have done a great job through the last, I think, 15 years of releasing resources for churches to use. They embraced the environment and climate change as part of their mission thinking a long time ago. And amongst the Baptist Together stream, there have been people who have taken an interest in this. But it's been a bit of a fringe thing. It's not seen as a core thing that we should be involved in. It's not seen as a core part of the gospel. Now, I disagree with that. I think this is a core part of the gospel. I think about that passage in Colossians where Jesus on the cross, I think it says, dies to redeem all things, not just humanity, but all things, all of God's good creation. So I think it's something we should be involved in from a faith perspective. So I'm kind of convening a group called BUEN, which means good in Spanish. We chose that name because it links in with God declaring creation is good. BUEN stands for the Baptist Union Environment Network. And we're connecting people together across our Baptist Together family who have an interest in the environment and climate, who actually bring some significant skills in different ways because their professional life is involved in the environment and environmental justice and campaigning. Some people come from a faith and theological perspective on this, and we're just trying to get these people together to be a stimulus for the wider Baptist family to get involved in these, to share with people our experience of what we've been doing in our local churches. I've come across an amazing church in to the south of Birmingham, Fernhill Baptist Church, near Worcester, who this October were putting on in the Heart of England Baptist Association a day conference called In Celebration of Creation. They've been running with this a green group in their church for 10 years. And they're not a huge church, they're a small church, but they had a passion, a heart to share that vision and that perspective with the wider association. Sadly, that's had to be cancelled because of COVID, but we're hopefully rescheduling that next year. So there are people like that who I think can be shining lights to us as a Baptist Together family, who can inspire us, who we can learn from their experience of journeying together, journeying with the Eco Church program, which Arosha are doing, which more and more Baptist churches are getting involved with. But we just want to generate some momentum and interest and passion for this amongst us. And also release some of the voices of the younger generations, the children, the Gen Zs, the millennials. We're talking about their world that we are shaping now. And they've been taking a lead over the last 18 months, those younger generations in this. And I think we need to listen to their voices too. That's another reason I think we should get involved.
Brilliant. We'll look out for the initiative. Dave, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time and bless you for all that you're doing.